Hi, I'm Beth from Dry It Can It, and today we're going to can poultry. Now, poultry can be chicken, turkey, wild game, basically a bird of some sort. We've had some turkey in our freezer since Thanksgiving, and now it's summer, time to get that out of the freezer, but also prepare some of it for supper and can the rest of it. So we let our turkey thaw in the refrigerator for a couple of days, and then we cut the pieces apart. And before I get going on the canning portion, the carcass, which really is the backbone and the breastbone, makes terrific broth. So don't throw that away. I put mine in the Instant Pot here. I'm going to put it back in the refrigerator right now. But the best thing you want to do with that is boil that down and put it in your Instant Pot with some aromatics, maybe an onion, carrots, celery, and cook that down, and you'll cool it, and then you'll have really nice broth for soup or for stew, but don't waste that part because it's really, really good. All right, so working with poultry, salmonella is always something you have to be concerned about with working with poultry especially. So you want to make sure that you're starting with clean surfaces, clean utensils, clean jars, and clean towels. Now you're going to see me wipe my hands as I'm working with the poultry during this, but when I'm done, these towels are going to be going straight into the wash. When I'm done, I'm going to take clean towels, completely clean my surfaces, and then add those to the wash. So cleanliness is really important when you're working with poultry especially. Traditionally, when you're canning meats, the guideline is 75 minutes for pints and 90 minutes for quarts. When you're working with poultry, there's kind of a little bit of a difference if you're working with bone or no bone. If your poultry, let's say I'm going to can a turkey breast, for example, has no bone in it, then I'm going to follow that guideline of the 75-90 for pints or quarts. However, if your meat, or your poultry rather, has bone in it, then the guideline is 65/75. So 65 minutes for a pint, 75 minutes for a quart. This being live recorded, so to speak, you won't see it live, but I am going to attempt to do one thing, but it might turn out to be another, so we're going to see what happens. When you're canning poultry, there's two ways to go. There's what's called hot pack or raw pack. Hot pack is where you're taking cooked or partially cooked meat, in this case poultry, and you're putting that into your jars, and then you're adding hot liquid, and then you're canning it. Raw pack is where you're taking your poultry and you're packing it raw, meaning you're not cooking at all, and then you're canning it. I personally prefer raw pack because it skips the step of preparing the meat ahead of time. I also think I get a juicier piece of meat when I'm doing that. Now, people will have preferences either way. Both of them are acceptable, both of them are safe as long as you're using safe canning practices. So what I'm going to attempt to do here is put some turkey pieces with bone into some of my jars. Now I'm going to have to do really this program in two phases. Because of the fact that I'm going to use some bone in some of my canning, I'm going to have a lesser canning time. So part one today is really going to be the bone portion, and I'll can that. And then part two is going to be the canning that I do without the bone, because that's going to require a longer processing time. Now if you're asking, why does it take longer if I don't have bone? Because that bone basically acts like a wick. It helps pull the heat in, and the whole purpose to pressure can is to kill any bacteria that might be in there. When you pressure can, your pressure canner gets up to 240 degrees. Water boils at 212 degrees. Again, this is going to vary a little bit depending upon your altitude, but as a general guideline, and the pressure canner is going to kill that bacteria. So what I'm going to do to get started is I'm going to take a look at my meat here and see what I can do about getting some bone-in pieces there. Now, knowing that I'm going to cook part of this evening, I really would like to get a turkey leg in here, but I think it's going to be too long, and it is going to be too long. So that's telling me that I'm not going to be able to do initially what I wanted to do. So then I'm going to look at the thigh here, and personally, I don't like to can with the skin on there. I think the skin just adds more fat to the jar, that I don't really want, and it really doesn't do anything for flavor, so I just pull the skin off. But here I have a turkey thigh, and I have bone, and so I'm putting that into my jar. And then I'm going to take a wing and put that in also. Now, getting the skin off the wing is going to be a little bit trickier. I do have a kitchen shears here, and I might end up leaving the skin on part of that just because the skin is tricky usually to get off of a turkey wing. Guess I'm gonna put that in with it anyway. Let's see what if I can do, if I can break that apart, maybe. Let's see if I can cut that. Like I said, sometimes doing this on live television, things don't always go exactly as planned. I had really hoped to get 2 turkey legs into a jar, but that didn't work. All right, so then I have another piece of turkey in here. And again, this is all with the bone. And I'm going to pack this last one in here. All right, I'm not going to add any liquid. What happens is I'm going to have a lot of juice that's going to come out of this meat, and that's going to can just beautifully. Now I'm going to add a second jar, and let's see what I'm going to do with this one. I know my husband wants some dark meat this evening, so I'm not going to do that. So I think I'm going to take this other, breast, which has a little bit of bone in it yet, and I'm going to put that in the jar. And I'm also going to take, because I have a little bit more room, I'm also going to take and put, I think actually now that I look at it, I'm going to take this neck. This neck is thin, but the neck meat is so delicious, and I'm going to put that in the jar. Now, these jars aren't filled all the way up to, you know, the inch headspace or whatever, and that's okay. I'm not worried about that. I would have loved to have got a turkey leg in one of those jars, but I just don't think that that is going to be doable. Nope, that's just not going to work. Too big. So I am going to keep a thigh and a wing and a breast and a couple of turkey legs for dinner this evening. And again, I'm wiping my hands with this, but this is all going to go into the wash right away when I'm done here. So, and then taking a clean towel, my canner will handle just 2 quarts, so I'm good with that. Then because there's grease on your turkey, the fat I should say, from the turkey, I'm going to just dip my clean towel into some vinegar, and I'm going to wipe the edges of this. And what that's going to do is make sure that any fat or grease, if you will, is removed from the edge and help me get a good seal. It's easy when you're working with this to have the juices get on your jar without even realizing it. So then I'm going to take my lids. Now remember, the thing with lids is the newer lids do not have to be soaked in hot water first. Check the back of your box for directions. Some of the older lids still do need to be soaked. So check your box, see what you need to do. Mine don't need to be soaked anymore, which is really nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put both of those in my pressure canner. They're going to can for 75 minutes because they are quarts, but they also are meat with a bone in it. And then when that is done, I'll show you what that looks like. But then part 2 will be a recipe I'm going to put together with some cooked turkey, and I'll show you what all of that looks like. So happy canning, and be sure to tune in to part 2. All right, the pressure canner just quit with the turkey, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up and see what we have. And you might recall that I did 2 quarts of turkey bone in. So this was pressure canned. It's for 75 minutes each because it had bone. And what you'll notice is that there's quite a bit of juice in each jar, and that kind of came from the turkey. I raw packed these, meaning I just put the turkey in there, did not put any liquids, and I put them in raw. I had preheated my canner, but I did not preheat the jars. So this is really what it's looking like. It's going to sit now for 12 to 24 hours. Want to let that seal, you know, so I hear the pop on the cans. And then I'll wash the jars up and I'll be able to store those for another time. What I really like about raw canning poultry is that the juice that you get is really good broth. It's really flavorful. So and the bone just pretty much melts off, or the meat I should say, just pretty much melts off the bone. So this is a great way to can any kind of poultry that you might have. Again, if you have no bones, then you're going to can 75 minutes for pints and 90 minutes for quarts. Because I had bone in this was 75 or 65 minutes, I should say, for pints and 75 minutes for quarts, and that's what we did here. So these will sit for overnight, basically. Hopefully I'll get a seal on both of those. The jars will get washed and they'll be put into the pantry for storage. And if you like this video and you learned something, please give it a thumbs up. Follow me for more information. Hoping to do a video real soon in the next day or so with some leftover turkey, putting a meal together, and more to come. So thanks for watching and happy canning.